Hello, friends. We are here to talk about The Real Housewives of New York, season 14, episode 7. There was a lot, jam packed into this episode, but it was, thoroughly entertaining. So we'll just jump right into it. I kind of thought that we were going to immediately get. I think I'm just so, used to, I'm really praising, the storytelling and production on this show because I just expect it to be a little bit more simple and a little bit more like one note. So I just kind of was thinking we were going to jump right into the backlash of the Sai and the ERIN, and we didn't. We did so much more before we got there. So we start. Jenna is doing like a photo shoot and not necessarily rebranding, but like some branding stuff for her lash line. I thought it was interesting to hear that she has the lash line specifically because she has a genetic disorder where she doesn't have eyelashes. So that was nice touch and go information and tidbit about Jenna that we got to learn. I did like hearing her explain. She invited Sai to help. I guess they were picking out the models. I almost felt like the models were already accepted by the time they got there. Like, just doing the consultation was kind of part of it. It felt like they did the consultation, then just took pictures and they kept moving. But I don't know, maybe there was a selection process. I'm not sure. But she invited Sai because she felt like she needed diversity there. So it was nice. She felt like there are going to be women there that wanted to see people like them across the table. So I'm glad she had that consideration and she did that. That was interesting to see. Also, coming off of last episode where Sai and Jenna kind of had this moment where, Jenna had expressed that she was now single and Sai's like, well, you can lean on me and blah, 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 whatever. So that's nice to see. It was also interesting to see Jenna get emotional, kind of rehashing the breakup. It felt like, Sai's pretty good at directing the conversations and stuff and kind of not necessarily producing the scene, but knowing what needs to be talked about to push the scene forward or what needs to go this day. So maybe shout out to her producer. But, she asked about the breakup and Jenna's instantly kind of upset. So you can feel Sai kind of pull back and she's like, okay, well, maybe you don't want to talk about that. So that was nice to see as well because it shows to me that they're kind of at least building a genuine relationship even outside of it's not even just we're doing a show and we're just going to talk about stuff. This is upsetting you, let's not talk about it. So I did make a note of that. And then also I did like being able to see, Jenna kind of the same thing, right? It kind of felt like I'm doing this because I'm on the show, but also real tea. So Jenna kind of tiptoes into telling Sai oh girl, and also about you leaving ERIN's event early, right? And Sai's just honestly I don't care, kind of off the bat. And so first Jenna kind of makes this joke, but it's a reality joke, and she's like, well, I'm pretty sure ERIN's going to be upset with you, but we already know ERIN's going to be upset because she told us she was upset last episode. But she kind of tiptoed into it. She's like, I think ERIN's going to be upset with you, and Sai just kind of doubles down. She's like, I don't really care, I was hungry. And so it's nice to have seen her actually give her that nudge the second time and be like, well, she's going to be upset, just so you know. So that felt like a subtle warning, but also, like I said, it feels like they're building a friendship. So they want to look out for each other. So that was fun to see. And, we get this scene of ERIN and Abe, and they're, just kind of chopping it up. This is the first instance where I see something interesting about Abe, because even in the preview, it just felt interesting. His energy and telling her about the BRYNN thing felt interesting, as if it was almost kind of messy. I struggle to use the word messy because that's his wife and she should be told. But I mean, because when it was happening, he was very giggly, ha ha ha. Not necessarily that he was affirming the behavior or saying that it was okay. And I know that sometimes people get nervous and they laugh. I've taken all of that into consideration. But it kind of felt like he was in on the joke and in on the conversation and kikiing with BRYNN, and he was going to move on. And then whereas here where he's telling ERIN about it, it feels almost like he was upset, but there was a passive aggressiveness that led into it, almost kind of like him and ERIN have that in common. Things will upset them and then kind of simmer on and then let them work themselves into a deeper upset. And the way that they communicated about it is almost so weird. They have this weird, I don't even know how to describe it, but they just have this weird energy about how they kind of dissect and dig into things that may not even be that big of a deal, or maybe didn't affect them in a certain way before, but they make it a big deal. They both feel like they have that energy. So he does that, and but then it kind of felt even weirder, like he kind of pulled back from it because Erin's getting pissed.
It really pisses me off.
Like immediately when he's telling her about what Brynn was saying, almost kind of word for word, verbatim, she is pissed off.
And it really pissed me off.
So to me, it kind of felt like he backed back off of it because he's like, okay, it wasn't that serious, possibly to him, and he might even like Brynn, and so he's just like, okay, woo, and he may not just want Erin to be that pissed, so he's like, okay, I don't want this to go any further. So it feels like he kind of backpedals off. So he's like, well, it was funny, like, what I'm saying, it was in jest, but it's like, that's not really how you brought it to her, but now it's funny, and she's like, what do you mean? And it kind of went on for a while. Like, she asked him a couple times, like, why are you laughing? Like, why do you think this is funny? This is not funny.
It was kind of funny at the time. And I even said
I don't
to
know
her,
why
like,
you're laughing. I'm like disgusted.
It was funny.
How is that funny that she's joking about that you should be around?
So, that got weird. And so that's why I'm kind of like, is Abe a little messy? But then he gets a little bit messier later. So we'll chat about that as well. There's also a part where, like, literally, it's almost like Erin knew, like, or maybe she didn't know, but it's almost like she knew, or like she just knew the right questions to ask. Because as Abe's telling the story, she's like, did you laugh? And he's like, well, yeah, I laughed. And it's like,
did you laugh?
I laughed.
Oh, thanks. That's
But
really nice.
I thought it was weird.
I wonder what made her ask that, but she hit the nail right on the head. I like that we get this conversation with Jessel and Pavitt. I just enjoy them. They're a lot of fun. But they're having a conversation, and basically she's talking about how she wants more kids, and he's expressing to her kind of like, they have some unresolved issues at the end of the day. The obvious things are there, right? They've already got 2 kids. They just had them, blah, 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 blah. But he's like, we've also got this thing where it's like, we did all this work to get our first 2 children through the IVF, and your mom doesn't even know about it. Like, there's so many more things below the level. So they're having a conversation about that. And it seems, again, like they're really good friends, and like he's just trying to give her good advice, not only as a husband, but as a friend, and kind of like connecting with the issue there. So I like being able to see that dynamic between the 2 of them. I guess I figured that we were going to get to the point where Jessel has to tell her mom about the IVF. So I do like that it's kind of coming from this conversation with Pavitt, and he's like giving her the advice to tell her, so that they can kind of move forward, because I think it is important for them to, in their story, their personal story, to be able to move forward. So I like that that's happening. We get to see Brynn then go out with, what was it, Gideon, like one of her ex-fiancés. And he seemed like a really nice guy. Like, she really explained him down to a T, it feels like. He's just a really nice guy. She never had to open doors for those years. I think she said collectively they were together for like 5 years. She didn't open the door. She didn't lift a finger. Like, if she got up from the table, he would jump. Like, he was always there. And I think a lot of us have experience with dating guys like that, but it's just like, she didn't say it, but what I felt like she was saying was he was just too much of a nice guy. And that's not like her, not that it's not her jam, but it doesn't get her excited. Like, it doesn't, it's not her zhuzh. So she just didn't see it for him like that. And one of the producers even makes a joke like, do you think he's playing the long game? And she's like, I hope not. Which is very telling, because it's like, she knows she never sees herself with this guy. I did start having a thought, like, watching it, like, oh, this is her first season. Like, what if we get the longevity of this story, and then one day Brynn becomes just like somebody's mom, or maybe even somebody's wife. You know what I'm saying? Like, she talked about kids as well. So, I thought that was fun to see, but she made it very clear that she didn't want to be with him. So I don't think we're going to get a follow-up to that unless we start doing inauthentic things, which I hope we don't. But speaking on the kids, like, I am excited that she even talked about, like, freezing her eggs and, like, what the possibility could be. Because, again, they gave me, like, a flash forward of where the show could go and, more to, like, where her story could go. So that was fun to watch. I thought it was also fun, like, just hearing little tidbits about their history, and her saying, like, they met on Tinder when it was, like, a beta app, and, like, how they bonded over liking cars. And it really didn't get, like, weird, because he was just being super nice, but it didn't get, like, weird and Brynn-esque until she's like, well, do you still have the engagement ring? Because can you sell it for this car? And it's like, I'm sure that they have some type of, like, vulnerable something to them from knowing each other for 5 years and all of that good stuff. But she just kind of seemed to be very like vocally not having it. But for some reason he sticks around. So and we're finally getting this scene with Jessel and her mom, and I thought it was fun to kind of see like their dynamic play out before they start having this serious conversation. And you can tell that they're really close, so I'm glad that the cameras really like picked up on that and got that type of footage, early on. And then they get into the conversation where she's talking about the IVF, and I like that she was able to give more context to it and kind of spell it out to her mom. It wasn't just like a emotional talk and this is what happens. It's like, let me give you all the context and why this feels so overbearing, right? Like, even aside from the emotional part of it necessarily, it's like, she was saying she had done 2 cycles, I think she said, over a span of 6 months, and neither of those first 2 cycles worked. So now she's out of $50,000, and even on the side of things, she's got people asking her when she's gonna have kids, and she feels like a failure. And then she even connects with her mom, and her mom agrees, because her mom starts to get emotional, and you can tell it's because she feels like, well, you're explaining to me the severity of it, like, I wish, aside from your health and all these other things, all these other factors that can come into it, just even like the money and the stress of it, like, I could have been there for you. So you could tell that her mom just wants to be there for her, and she says that. So, you watch her get upset, but it's nice to see Jessel kind of bring her back down and say, well, like, how it is. Like, I didn't want to tell you, even aside from those things, like, what would have happened if people found out. And her mom starts to get it even more, right? She's very affirming, and she's like, yeah, people will gossip, like, I get it. So at the end of the day, they have a good conversation, and her mom's like, I understand, it's fine. And Jessel says, I would like for you to be there, the next time around. So I'm glad they had that conversation. I feel like that was really good storytelling. And, I'm excited to see, just like with the potential for BRYNN, I'm excited to see the potential for where this story can continue. We then get to the crux of the episode, which is this, like, wreath making party that BRYNN had, which sounds super fun. And I guess it was like a brunch or whatever. It was kind of giving me, like, early vibes, because it just didn't seem like anybody really wanted to be there. It kind of felt like the girls were like trickling in very slowly, as if they were like waking up trying to get there. But so I mean, we got off to a slow start, but we get, which was became T, we get Jenna coming in with like a bunch of gifts. And at first I'm like, this is super cool. Like, I was kind of raving about it because I was watching with my friend. I'm like, it's super cool how she, like, and my friend asked me too. It's made me feel super silly later. My friend's like, so what are these? Like, what are these things? And I'm like, oh, well, she said, like, these are her favorite things, and she just wanted like her friends to have them and try them out. So I'm like, oh, that seems super cool. Little did we know, child. But yeah, so that happens. But she explained it as, this kind of makes me feel some type of way. She explained it as, like, these are some of my favorite things. And she's like, they're all made by, like, women and small businesses. So I'm like, oh, that's super cool, but gag me. But we're going to get there. Both ERIN and Sai pulled up, back to what I was saying about this possibly being an early event. ERIN and Sai pulled up like they did not want to be there. I mean, Sai, she came to ERIN's engagement party looking like she didn't want to be there, so maybe that's just the way she walks into rooms, or maybe just for the past 2 events she hasn't been feeling it. But ERIN is, she's pissed off, but we already know why she's pissed off.
It really pisses me off.
But she's like on fire, and she already says it. She's like, I'm pissed, so I'm here to ruin BRYNN's event, because that's what she did to mine. So I want to have a bad attitude, and I want to start drama. So I was living for that. I was very excited for that, because if ERIN's gonna lead into her, like, I have an issue, let me address it every time I step my big toe into a group scene, then I feel like she should just go ahead and go for it. She didn't necessarily pull it off, in my opinion, but we'll get into that as well. We get this, it's become a thing of, like, Sai complaining about the food. It hadn't bothered me literally until now, to be honest with you. Like, none of the last instances really ticked me off. Not even like going to Nobu without saying goodbye. Like, I didn't care anything about that. But her coming in and complaining about there not being any healthy options for the brunch and talking about how brown the avocado was, it just felt like a bit much. And I'm like, okay, girl, hang it up. Like, at this point, like, it's very old, and I think it's more annoying because it feels authentic to her. Like, I think this is for real. It's not a bit. Like, she actually does that, and so now it's annoying. And then she does something even more annoying where she, comes out and tells Jenna's whole story about her nickname, right? Something that, this kind of took it down a notch for me, and I'm sure for Jenna as well, because she seems like she has perfect sense. It feels like Jenna and Sai bonded at Erin's party about the, breakup, and then they kind of rebonded at Jenna's eyelash thing, and, then she kind of, I think that was a personal story, right? Like, she shared it on camera to a stranger, but it was in a moment of endearment where she was trying to make somebody else feel comfortable, and I feel like it was a little peek at Jenna just kind of opening up naturally. Like, she kind of just seems like she's opening up. So I think that that was a moment for them to have, but Sai brings it to the table and tells the entire story impressively, verbatim, word for word, segment for segment. But I don't know if it's the way it was edited, but Jenna seemed to be caught off guard by it, I'm sure, because that is a very personal story. It's not a huge deal, I don't think, but again, it's not my story to tell, and it's not Sai's either. So, it did feel like it probably caught her off guard. I think if I were Jenna, I would have been making a personal mental note of like, okay, well, Sai is a little interesting on the communication tip. That's all. Finally, we get the backlash of the ERIN and the Sai. I don't remember how they got immediately into it, but ERIN doesn't really waste any time, and Sai didn't either. She immediately goes and kind of Sai, she's like, I think you're rude, and I don't think you have any manners. Like, I don't think you should have left my party without saying goodbye. And Sai is just immediately very dismissive, and she tells her straight out, like, I don't care.
I think it's incredibly rude, and I think you have bad manners.
I don't care.
So, now they're kind of going back and forth in a way that almost feels like they didn't just have this small mini alliance against Jessel when they were both annoyed at Jessel, because the same annoyance that I feel like they separately and together had against Jessel, they now have it separately against each other. Like, it literally was at that same level, and I'm like, well, that's a crazy dynamic. Like, they were both just very committed to not resolving this at all. Like, it just didn't matter. Like, I'm pissed at you and we're just going to be pissed. So I'm like, well, this is very catty for two women that were presumably pretty close when it was convenient. But okay, But you do tend to see the cracks in those small, mini, temporary mean girl alliances. So it's interesting to see it in the same season in this close proximity. We don't really get any real close on that argument, and it doesn't really feel like anybody else had much to say about her leaving to go to Nobu. I don't know that anybody else cared as much. They seem to have strong opinions about other people's situations, like I said, when it's convenient, but I don't think that this one was going to really do much. But also, I think I keep talking from an alliance standpoint, but the dynamics in the show are so Big Brother like for me. So I feel like Sai and ERIN are such like strong characters in this group where it's like you don't necessarily want to pick a side in those. So it feels like everybody just was like, I just want, like, damned if I do, damned if I don't. So I'm just not going to say anything. Like, let's just stay in good graces, let them fight it out because they were pissed enough. So that's what happened with that. And then ERIN so iconically swifts her attention over to BRYNN. She's like, and you also, like, she lets her know I'm not feeling you either. And impressively, again, she kind of word for word, like, literally Abe kind of did a word for word verbatim of what, like, BRYNN was doing. And then she took that and did a word for word verbatim of Abe's word for word verbatim of what BRYNN did. So it was very in same sequence, same phases. So I was very impressed at how she kind of broke the tea down to BRYNN. And BRYNN at first was giving almost of a deny, like none of that really happened. But the way that she was breaking it down to her, she's like, okay, well, no, now let me pick each story apart. And so, that came with a strong conviction from both her and Jessel that the divorce word never came out. And production had to play a very entertaining clip of her saying divorce, separation.
What are you She definitely did bring up the D word. Divorce, of course, trial separation.
So that was embarrassing for her, but it was weird because, like, I said it last episode. I'm like, well, she got online and she acknowledged that she was wrong, but I was like, we'll see how it plays out on the show. Completely different. She did not care on the show. She was not feeling it. She was letting ERIN know, like, girl, I was not flirting with your husband. I guess I can see I can see, not saying understand or agree, I can see her outrage, because if she genuinely felt like, well, that was not my intention to flirt with your husband, so now I'm outraged, I can see it, but I don't agree with it, because this isn't your moment to be outraged. You made somebody else feel some type of way, so it's not your moment to be outraged with how you made them feel. You can't be reactively outraged to something that you started at the end of the day. So I thought that was BS. And she was just very dismissive to ERIN. So now at this point, ERIN's got a 0 for 2. You know, she got dismissive side to overly dismissive BRYNN. Like, you know, it's just not working out for her. BRYNN's throwing digs, and she's like, well, tell your husband to stop laughing at my jokes. Which is true, because he was cracking up, and I know that hit ERIN at the bottom of her soul, because she was asking the right questions, right? She asked him, did he laugh? And he said, absolutely. And now BRYNN's throwing it in her face. So that's embarrassing. But then, even worse, like, to add insult to injury, obviously, ERIN probably didn't know any of this until we knew it. But all the ladies, most of the ladies basically agree. Like, they're in the confessional basically saying it's just not a big deal. So that was a little disheartening, I would have to say. Like, I typically do tend to think that ERIN does too much. But in this instance, I'm definitely on her side. This argument itself, it kind of felt like she was a little tired. Like, she couldn't even give it as much. I don't think she was even really trying to beef like that, but she was trying to put the girls on notice. And she was heated, but I think she's given more energy to Jessel, is what I'm trying to say. I think she's given out more energy than she was giving in this. But she was receiving a higher level of just dismissal from 2 separate women, and then from the whole group. Like, nobody cared. So I definitely felt bad for her in that moment, until she, like, you know, decided she wanted to leave, because I'm like, well, you know, because ultimately BRYNN told her, like, girl, basically, I don't care. It was what it was. It was a joke. Don't flatter yourself. She told this lady, do not flatter yourself, and followed that up with, your party was boring.
Like, joke. Don't flatter yourself. Yes. Yes, it is.
Really?
Because the party was boring.
So, you know, ERIN gets up to leave. And I'm disappointed, because she came in on fire. And, you know, she instantly got defeated by these ladies. Like, I guess I get it, because it is hard to receive that much dismissiveness in the group, if that's a word. But you can't get up and leave after, I mean, you've had so much smoke for, like, Jessel in the past. And you also were kind of, like, steadfast in your first restaurant beef with Sai and BRYNN. You also were kind of steadfast in your Jenna stuff. So, like, you act like you have these very strong convictions, and now you want to leave. Like, for me, personally, if my name was Julian with ERIN in parentheses, I definitely would have gotten into these situations. Like, I probably would have gone back and forth between Sai and BRYNN for the rest of the brunch until they got my point. That's just me. Like, I'm very much so let me have the last word. And, you know, you're not going to be dismissive towards me. That's going to only put more energy in my tank. So I probably would have gone the entire time, and it would have been insufferable for everyone, and I would have been having a great time, because that's what ERIN made it seem like. She came in and said she's pissed, she's going to ruin the event. So my expectation from a viewer standpoint was to see her ruin the event. She's ruined way less in the other episodes by being petty. So this was your chance, but I think that my baby's battery was very low, and she just couldn't do it. So that was disappointing. And then also, for her to go out, I feel like I saw a third face of Abe, right? Like, I wanted to go back and double check, because I'm pretty sure it said that she was on the phone with Abe. So in the event, this is a test, a Scantron test. In the event that she was on the phone with Abe, which I'm 99% sure she was, I did not like the things that he was saying, the way that he was kind of going in on BRYNN, because it's like, you didn't give that energy when it was happening, and then you started to give that energy when you were talking to ERIN about it, but then you kind of backpedal on it, and now you're going full force and calling her the B word. So I think that's why I was kind of like, is that Abe? Because I just couldn't believe that it was happening. So in the event that it was not Abe, whoever was saying it, that argument that I just said goes to you, even the parts that are not applicable because they're Abe specific. But yeah, Abe, in the 99% chances that was you, ill. And yeah. There was a part at the end, like, where she's gone. The girls are very much so like, I don't care, let's move on. But BRYNN was saying, like, you know, I do want to understand where she's coming from, which had a little bit of hope for me. And I'm like, okay, great. But then she doubles down to say, like, but Erin knows me. Like, she knows I wouldn't have done that. And I just don't agree with that argument at the end of the day. Like, if she's upset, then she's upset. Like, you can't diminish her being upset because you're like, well, you know that she knows that I wouldn't do that. She doesn't know that you wouldn't do that because that's why she's upset. So don't flatter yourself, Bryn, and think that you have this pristine, reputation where people are supposed to know, oh, just because she's like flirty and fun and jokey, she would never flirt inappropriately with my husband. I don't know that, and I don't owe you that type of grace. So I didn't agree with that, right? Like, oh, you're Kevin Hart now, so everything that you say is supposed to be taken so lighthearted. No, go to hell. So I didn't agree with that. I don't know why the ladies are agreeing with it. I think it's just one of those things where they're kind of, they may just be sick of Erin having an issue with everything, which I can understand. But it feels like they're just jumping on the bandwagon and be like, well, we're just not going to agree with Erin because Erin agrees with Erin, so we don't have to. So that's what it feels like to me. The last thing, like, I just really enjoy seeing, I really enjoy Jessel in this moment, but that's not really the best part of this moment, but it's really kind of towards the top. So, Jenna starts handing out her gifts, and Jessel is looking at everything, and she's like, you know what, I'm on a thank you tour after what's been going on with me. Like, I'm going to say thank you to everything possible.
I'm a f***ing Christmas tree. I would never wear this. I absolutely hate this. I'm on a thank you tour now. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
This is a great re-gift bag. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's amazing. Great. Thank you.
So that tickled the hell out of me. I laughed about that for about 20 minutes, and I will continue to. That was funny, but what really got me and really embarrassed me, as I alluded to earlier, Sai clocks that everything on these gifts basically has Jenna's name attached to it. Like, it's one of her products, or she's like I don't know, like she's representing them, or like she's a partner in them. Like, Sai clocks that, and I'm like, and it seems like all the other ladies kind of subtly clocked it too. Like, this is a smart group. So they're just like, oh, Jenna's trying to push her products. Which, listen, there's nothing wrong with that. And I know we're currently on like a ill-sized annoying train, and I understand that because she is a little bit annoying, but she made a point, because at the end of the day, it's not about the fact that Jenna is like showing her businesses, because you should do that. This is what the platform is for, but that's not what was happening. Jenna explained this specifically on this day, this subject day, that she was giving her friends her favorite things as gifts. She was collecting gifts for her friends. And then she goes even further to give it meaning by saying, oh, they're all by women and small businesses. But she never said they're by this woman and the small businesses that I invest in. So that was real sneaky, and that was real tea. That was real tea. So that was... Obviously, there's no like negative implication behind it, but it was snuck in there, so that makes me look at Jenna a little weird. That's all that I'm saying. I still really like Jenna. She's at the top of my list, but that was weird. So I appreciate Sai for and the other ladies for clocking that tea. So I thought that this was a really good episode. I know the girls are not feeling Sai at this moment. I'm still not completely against Sai. I'm going to be honest with y'all. Not as much as I have been against others. But it just keeps doing this. You know what I'm saying? Like, we just got to see. But I am in the whole BRYNN versus ERIN thing. I'm not even gonna give a side. I was so close. But that Abe stuff really turned me off. I'm so sorry, ERIN. I'm so sorry. And I will see y'all next time.